Hi everyone, welcome to Go Local Live. Good Tuesday afternoon. I'm Go Local News Editor Kate Nagel. Would like to welcome in my first guest here to talk some news and politics today, Representative Pat Serpa, House Oversight Chairwoman. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me, Kate. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I appreciate your taking the time to come into the studio before the committee this week takes up the Child Fatality Review Panel's report. Now, we are expecting quite the hearing this week, reviewing again DCYF, this report in particular, and their recommendations, which you've had the opportunity to review, but we'll be hearing from even more people this week. Right. So what do you expect of the committee this week?
Well, I know that the committee is concerned about a complaint that was filed by the federal government to protect all Rhode Island children back in 2007 after the death of T.J. Wright, and they made 20 specific recommendations. In January of 2018, those recommendations were finalized. So here we are a year and a half later, and those recommendations all apply to child safety and to child well-being. So here we are a year and a half later. So I expect on Thursday the committee is going to want a complete update on where are we with those 20 recommendations. And Kate, I'm already hearing the buzz that we haven't made much progress in terms of protecting our children. Therefore, that brings us to the Rothgeb case, which I know that your listeners are probably very familiar with.
So let's talk a little bit about that. Again, the federal government coming in saying these changes need to be made. Of course, the issues and challenges at DCYF and of course, the well-being of children in Rhode Island has been well documented. You've continued to chair the House Oversight Committee, reviewing what's taking place at DCYF. Especially hearing from what is going to be in this report. Hearing from the review panel. What's your sense? You just alluded to that Rhode Island's not where it needs to be. How does it get where it needs to be?
Kate, it's been a failure of many administrations and of many directors. So I'm not going to place this solely on the shoulders of Dr. Piccola. But that agency has had 3 directors in 6 years. No agency can have 3 different bosses with 3 different mission statements and expect for there to be consistency and good policy results. So the workers are frustrated, the workers at DCYF are frustrated, and don't forget, I want your listeners to remember that the DCYF workers include the young men and women, mostly young men and women, who work at the training school. And they're charged with keeping us safe from some very dangerous young people. So I expect Thursday's meeting, I'm going to have a number of social workers there and a number of JPWs, they're called juvenile program workers. They're going to come in and they're going to list their grievances. And if I may be so bold as to say, I think the timing is perfect because we're on the cusp of interviewing a new administrator at DCYF, and I hear that Dr. Wamzetta Jones, the new administrator for the entire department, EOHHS, I hear that she may be attending, so I think it's a perfect opportunity for everybody to flush out their grievances just so she knows what to look for in a new director.
And let's talk a little bit about the budget, if you will, looking forward. We had the opportunity to speak before the show about the potential for an accreditation on the national level. Now, of course, folks might raise eyebrows and say, well, DCYF is having issues, but you think it's a great idea, bring the feds in, and as you said, really get that look from the inside out, and then use that as the impetus to make broader, more systemic changes.
Correct. And to bring it down to maybe your listeners closer to home level, your police department in your city or town may have a national accreditation, and it makes it easier for our Congress people to seek more money for them, better equipment, better training. Maybe your high school in your area, we hope your high school is nationally accredited, and again, it's a status, it's a feather in their cap. So we set aside $500,000 in the budget we passed in June for a national accreditation agency to come in, and Kate, the best way I can say it is that it's a self-purging of everything that's right and everything that's wrong with your own agency. You meet after hours, you meet on weekends. It's painful and it's difficult. And sometimes you're embarrassed, but that's okay. And then when you're finished with your report, this national agency with no political agenda, no political ties to Rhode Island, nothing to gain by coming in and looking at our self-study and making recommendations. Maybe they'll find that DCYF is top-heavy in management and middle management. Maybe they'll find that we're short in caseworkers, and I know we are. So this can be a very helpful tool. And if they tell us that DCYF needs more money, it'll easily be justified by a national company.
So you talk about having that money budgeted, Chairwoman. What are the next steps for seeing that, to actually take place?
Well, obviously, a new director has to be appointed, and the new director will have to devise teams, investigatory teams, child service teams that actually go out to the homes, and then he will have to begin to design the self-study. How do we want to begin? And this could take up to 1 or 2 years. I mean, I'm not pretending that this is a quick or an easy fix, but Kate, my goal in all of this for as long as I can remember, this has been a troubled agency, and we just keep reacting. And we should be proactive. We should have the best national standards and practices in place so that we don't have these horrible deaths of children drowning in bathtubs. We don't have a 55-year-old woman caring for 8 or 9 handicapped children. So that's what I hope, to fix it for once and for all.
So that's that broad look, as you said, would take a new director and could take a substantial amount of time to be able to do the review necessary. But specifically this week, with this week's committee hearing, what do you hope comes out of it?
Well, I do hope that Dr. Jones is there to listen to it. And I'm going to be very bold myself and probably politically incorrect. I have my own ideas about an interim director, and I said it to another media outlet. I would like to see a Jennifer Griffith, who is the child advocate, or a Mr. Joseph Codden, who was the superintendent of the Rhode Island Training School. I would love to see them, because they know DCYF inside out, I would love to see them come in for 6 months or a year, turn the place inside out and upside down if they had to, and let them be independent of the governor, just as Jennifer Griffith works for the governor, but she's not tied to the governor in terms of losing her job by telling the truth. She has a 5-year appointment, so at the end of 5 years, this governor could determine not to reappoint her, but there's no immediate threat of, if you're too honest and if you say this, I'm going to call you into my office and I'm going to fire you. Because all the people on the inside, they tell me, Kate, that if management could be totally honest, they would often agree with, and I call them the street workers, but they're afraid for their own positions.
Okay.
And those are those political ties, I think, that impede progress, not just in DCYF, but in all departments, in DLT and DOT. Everybody's afraid for their jobs, and I get that.
Okay, well, we're going to have all eyes again on House
Yes.
Oversight this week. I appreciate your taking the time, again, giving that preview, both the short-term look, that interim director possibility, and of course, the long-term federal accreditation process, if you will. So, Chairwoman Pat Serpa, thank you so much for taking the time to come in.
Thank you.
And don't go anywhere. We're going to be back with our next guest talking about some of the big news of the day, the passing of author Toni Morrison. We'll be right back.